Hey everyone, Chris here with Wasteland by Wednesday. I'm out here for a little group exercise today, although really I'm just here for the rucking. Right now I'm taking a little coffee break while the youngsters run around in full battle rattle out here, training themselves to die in the water wars or whatever. With the wildfires that have been tearing up Los Angeles right now, I felt like making a little video to talk about how a similar event is originally what got me into prepping for collapse. And it wasn't all that long ago. This isn't really a prepping related video exactly, but I feel like someone out there, you know, maybe you'll get a little use out of the story. So I might as well tell it. I've written about it some on Reddit and other places, but now you can hear it right from me, right here. So anyway, welcome to the Wasteland, my friends. Hell of a time to be alive, am I right? Not that anyone asked me, but I feel like we are right there at the edge of collapse. Not quite at the end of everything yet, but definitely close enough to the cliff to see what the drop looks like. I don't really work anymore, not at a normal job, not since 2019. I gave that up as the folly that it always was, though it took a personal awakening to make me see it. My journey into this new life that I'm living came as the result of a phone call from an old friend. That friend was in Australia at the time, having left the U.S. several years before to find greener pastures. Turns out those pastures would end up being red and yellow and orange. Yeah. The phone call came during the intense wildfires of that time in 2019, December of 2019 exactly. It was definitely a noisy, chaotic call that jolted me out of sleep and plunged me into the frantic world that my friend was experiencing. The world he was trying to escape. I'll spare you the complete details. I'm sure you can imagine, and maybe you've seen some of the videos that have been going around from that time, but they were basically driving through those fires. Escaping, really, not driving. With walls of fire on all sides and smoke pouring into the vehicle, everybody scared, everybody, you know, out of their minds. My friend was trying to tell me all of what had happened to him, and I could hear everything, but not really make sense of much. I couldn't make sense of really any of it. Lots of screaming and cursing, banging, and other unidentified noises, the car, the wind, the fire, everything. At one point, there was a series of particularly loud crashes, and then the voices screaming became entirely unintelligible. It sounded frantic. It sounded horribly violent. It sounded final. And then it was gone. Dead air. The silence of a final disconnection. And I was sure that I had just listened to the last moments of my friend's life play out in fear and pain as he and his family were engulfed by the fire they were trying to escape. I put a little too much wood in there. I spent the rest of my night with that thought, you know. A thought rough enough that I could like feel it scratching at me. But it turns out I was wrong, thankfully, and gratefully wrong. What had actually happened was simply that the phone had been dropped in the vehicle, and of course nobody's going to waste any time trying to pick it back up. Pretty much what I had listened to was just the death of that device. But not my friend. Thankfully not my friend. He called me later to tell me the tale of his wild flight through all the terror and hellfire that nature mustered up that day. His life was forever changed by it, though, and mine was as well, along with so many others. I couldn't really see the world the way I used to after that. Those hours that I had sat awake thinking about people burning to death in a speeding car, that kind of changed me a little bit. Shifted my priorities, you could say, I guess. Awakened me, as it were. Awakened me to the threat of what we were really facing. And I'd always been aware of things like climate change, resource scarcity, overshoot, and all that. And coming from a military family, I was keenly aware of war as well. But now I had personally seen some collapse brought into stark focus. Why were those fires so intense? How had they even been spawned, and when would it happen again, like it's happening now in LA? What else was out there in the world that I was ignoring? What other things had I missed in my distraction with the daily grind of work and bills and credit scores and all that other bullshit? So busy producing, consuming, feeding the machine its daily quota for infinite growth, I realized I'd somehow lost something else, and I also realized I had something else in common with my friend. Like him, I never saw it coming, but I saw it then. Oh yeah, I definitely learned a lesson on that fiery night, and I learned that the world wasn't the structured and stable place that it had once been. I learned that we had destroyed all that. Basically, I learned that we had fucked around for so very long, and now the time had come for us to find out what the consequences of that would end up being. I learned that I had a lot more to learn. The limits to growth, overshoot, the planetary boundaries and tipping points and resource scarcity, deforestation, biodiversity loss, and depleted, polluted oceans. All that stuff. But most importantly, I had to learn what those things did to or what those things could do to our overly complex and interconnected systems and geopolitical tensions. For a while there, I was a voracious consumer of data, especially in those early days. I quit my job, like I said. Why waste any more time with that, right? And I turned to learning and planning. So did my friend, and so did many of our other friends. We all came together in a singular purpose, something I mentioned in my video on mutual assistance groups, which I'll link at the end of this. That purpose was to find out what was happening and figure out what we were going to do about it. Collapse is what the answer turned out to be. What was happening was collapse of our biosphere and of our civilization. The two are intertwined, And as the climate destabilizes and the world's resources grow scarce, so too does civilization move ever closer to the brink. The cliff drop of overshoot and the rapid drop that comes after. Many people have already known of the threat from climate change, but few of us really took the time to follow that thought to figure out just what kind of response humanity as a whole would have to those pressures. As they began to mount, what was it going to do to them? What was it going to do to us, to all of us? And of course, logic and reason would prevail. That's what it was assumed. things would be done, problems would be identified, and solutions would be found. You know, no sweat. But that definitely turned out to not be the case. Soon after, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic hit, and society found itself turned upside down. All of a sudden and all at once, those of us who were paying attention had a realization. You know, we were not going to face crisis with logic or reason. Oh no. No, we would face it with rage. We would face it with hate. We would face it with division and confusion. We would face it with crazy ideas and wild denials. We would divide ourselves to the extreme and amplify all the problems beyond what they needed to be. That seems to be the pattern with everything we're doing lately, you know. And finally, we would face it with violence. That is when I really saw what was coming. I saw the fragility of our civilization, of our intricate and interconnected society and its web of interdependencies. I saw the irrational reactions to even the smallest of stresses, and I watched entire lives consume themselves without ever really even being touched by the pandemic. The politics got them before anything else really could. You know, I could also see the future of our struggles with climate change, a problem much bigger and much more devastating than any plague. I could also see that things were accelerating rapidly. But I saw our future, and that future was war. You know, there's simply no other way such a thing's going to go. There's no world where some nations would simply bow down to defeat so that other nations could survive. Hell no. Everyone's going to fight to win a spot in the Survivors Club. And what went for the individual also applies to the national scale. You know, when the shit really hit the fan, when the world really ran out of what we needed, we were going to fight over the scraps of what was left. That's for damn sure. And we're getting close to that now. You know, you can see it if you pay attention. And that's how my journey and the journey of my friends got started. You know, to prepare for the changing climate and that inevitability of emerging war. To be ready for the gathering gloom that was going to be our future. It's been a few years now since then. Those of you out there watching who know me or who have read some of my work, you know how far I've come. Not alone, of course. Nobody does it alone. But in concert with my little community of friends. You know, even my friend from Australia. You know, now we're ready as any can get. And now we just wait. I don't think we'll be waiting long. But while I wait, I try and spread my awareness to others. I try to wake them up from the same dream that I'd been trapped in for more than 40 years of my life. Try to help them, help you prepare for the consequences of our actions, for a post-collapse world on fire, for a wasteland by Wednesday. My goal is to try to help as many people get ready as I can. Simple as that. You know, that's the reason why I wrote my books on the subject, why I started my blog, and eventually why I made this channel. You know, I'm just trying to make it through the fire to the other side, and I'm trying to take you with me. So I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're watching. I hope you stay. I hope I can help us all learn something to help us all survive. That's all. Time is short, my friends. Stay safe, stay ready. It's a wasteland out there.